Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
We are speaking with Dave Ellefson of Megadeth and, of course, Thom Hazaert. Bonjour, as we say in Montreal. How are you?
Bonjour. How are you? How are you?
Good, good. And so this is exciting because we've got this No Covers album coming out. 13 tracks.
No cover. There's lots of covers, but no cover.
No cover.
Yeah.
Well, but you do have a cover.
And it has an no cover.
It does technically have a cover, but
it goes back to like when you go to the bar and there's always a cover charge. And during this pandemic, no cover when you come hang out with Team Ellefson. There's no cover.
I like that. It kind of reminded me of. We talked about it kind of as a vibe like No Quarter, Led Zeppelin, like Give Me Shelter, the Rolling Stones. It was just some random cool title that I pulled out of my ass, and then we came up with the concept for the cover, and Melody Myers did it, and I kind of came up with the concept of the On Through the Night, homage with David's bass, and it just took on this life of its own, man. It's been wonderful.
So let me start right there with that cover, the On Through the Night, because what I saw when it first went up and you first put it out, right? People were like on Facebook and on Twitter going, "Yeah, but don't you realize it's Def Leppard's cover?" And I was like,
we did know that. Yes, we did know. We were
well aware of that fact.
I know. We were aware of that.
But did you imagine that it was going to give you, I don't want to call them problems because, I mean, there's other problems, but did you imagine that people would not sort of get the joke or get...
My bigger thing was that, I wanted the guys in Def Leppard to get the respect, you know what I mean? Because I think the bigger thing with me as we got into this record, because there's one thing for me and Tom to kind of riff and go, oh, let's do this song, let's do Sheer Heart Attack, let's do... Love Machine by Watt, you kind of run down the songs. And then as we got into it and we were recording it, this isn't like a metal band trying to out metal the cover, and it's like we are really doing true to form versions, almost as if Nazareth went in with the technology of 2020 and recut Love Hurts, even Judas Priest going in with the modern day, like if they went in with the Firepower lineup right now and recut Free Will Burning, that's probably what it would sound like is what's on our record. Yeah. So for me, it's more like these guys are my friends, they're my contemporaries, they're my friends. When Brian May hears Sheer Heart Attack, I want him to get a nice smile on his face and well done, mate. Right on you. Good on you. That to me is probably more important. The Def Leppard guys are obviously pretty close into our world and so for them, I was hoping they would maybe get a laugh, get a kick out of it. And I repeatedly say, look, that record, out of all the new wave of British heavy metal between Venom, Diamond Head, Motorhead, first couple Iron Maiden records, when that On Through the Night record showed up in the rehearsal room by my then probably 16-year-old drummer, I was 15 at the time, and he was flipping out going, oh my God, you got to check this band out. These guys, I think the oldest band, the guy in the band is 19 and the drummer's only 16. And I flipped it over and the picture on the back, they're on tour with AC/DC. And I just went, you know what? I can do this now. Like this made it totally approachable and within my grasp to be able to really go make a career of playing heavy metal. And that came from that record.
And to what you were saying, Jim, Mitch, more
I can be Jim this afternoon. That's okay.
Dude, I
Jimmy Lafon. Jimmy Lafon.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yo,
Jimmy.
Rock Talk with Jim.
Full disclosure, as you know, Jim Mitch, I had a cardiac arrest a month ago, so I'm still having some weird little short-term memory blips. So I apologize.
How are you, by the way? Because I read that online and I was like, oh Jesus, okay, how are you?
I'm good. I'm probably at about 80. I mean, look, it was pretty scary, and I actually my heart stopped and. I guess I'm in the Nikki Sixx club now, but I got a pacemaker put in. They managed to revive me, and after it was a rough couple weeks. I'm probably back to 70-80%. I mean, look, I was good enough to fly to LA last week with David, and we went and shot a video with Al Jorgensen, and so I'm good. I'm probably at about 80%, but again, I'm still dealing with these little residual little short-term memory things, and I kind of but again, I'm 80%, 90%. I'm getting there, so.
So if he pulls a Max Headroom and does one of these once in a while, just know that's what it is. We were joking. We always said he he no sooner sang the song "Sheer Heart Attack" than he went and had one. So
Yeah.
Tom truly living the spirit.
Sing 16 songs in 4 days, and that's probably what'll happen to you too. So,
I know.
but I literally came out of it. I was in my hospital bed mixing these fucking songs. Literally, I was in my hospital bed, on the phone with Alessio in London, like mixing these songs and talking to Bumblefoot and everybody, just kind of getting this stuff done. So, but to speak what you were saying, Mitch, is more people. Yeah, there was some people that said that, but more people got it than not. More people said, "Wow, that's a really cool homage to On Through the Night." Like people, there's always going to be people that don't get it. Whatever you do, man, there's always going to be. I don't know how you don't get it. I mean, clearly. It was like the record, like the songs. It was a totally reimagined, updated homage. He did it with a more modernized truck and made the moon look different. Again, but obviously, clearly, it's done as a tribute. I mean, especially I feel sorry for the people that don't get it. It's like, okay, we do a cover record with a cover that looks pretty damn close to exactly like On Through the Night, and to think that we didn't do that intentionally, how not together do you need to not get that? I mean, I thought it would be pretty, you can hit somebody over the head with it and they still don't get it, but most people got it. Most people love it. Again, to me, yeah, like I just wanted the Def Leppard guys, who are, again, friends of ours, and I wanted them to get it. And again, I think for the most part, everybody thought it was cool. I love it. I think it's a cool, to me, it just gives such a cool vibe, man. That's really the era that we touched on, and it's cool because me and David keep talking in interviews about how, I'm 10 years younger than he is, so we're into the same bands but kind of different eras. Like I love those early records, but my first Def Leppard record was Pyromania and Hysteria, and I retroactively went back and got into High and Dry and On Through the Night, and I love them. But that's cool. So a lot of the stuff we kind of love the same bands but sort of different eras, and Def Leppard, that was kind of the thing. I brought up, let's do a Def Leppard song. And we both kind of instantly went to On Through the Night, and David's like, well, we have to do Wasted. I'm like, done.
It's kind of funny. Right about the time Tom started buying records, I quit buying them because I was in LA. We were starting Megadeth, and
I don't need to listen to records anymore. I'm a rock star.
Well, no, it wasn't that. It's just, you're immersing yourself in, in that day, I am, for 20 years, I fully immersed myself into Megadeth, everything that we were, how we thought, you become a strategic, you're like a military team, and I got to be honest with you, so I played covers, of course, growing up as most of us, all of us have. And it's ironic that, if you're within probably a 10, 12, 15 year, at least 10 years probably, age difference, we all share the same record collection, so like when we ranked Doro, Doro was on the Mega Cruise back in October that we did. And Tom and I, with our Ellefson solo band, we played a pretty fun night of mostly a bunch of Megadeth songs, because Megadeth wasn't able to perform with Dave just finishing his cancer treatments at that time. It wasn't safe for him to travel. So we fired off a bunch of Megadeth tunes, and people were stoked. And I raised my hand and offered to put together an all-star jam. I'd done enough of these cruises over the years to know that that's kind of one of the big highlights is the all-star jam. So as I was talking to Frank Bello, I said, man, I'm putting a set list together, and I don't want it to be Metal Allegiance. That's its own special thing. Some of these people are getting on and off the boat at different points. And Frank just said, he goes, well, dude, you can always do a night of Kiss songs. Everyone will love that. I go, God, it's brilliant. So me and Charlie Benante basically put the set together. And Charlie and I were sitting out by the pool on the ship, kind of finishing up the set list. And it was great because, again, the songs Doro recommended were the 80s Kiss, which is what Tom's a fan of. So Tom and Doro got to sing some stuff together and connect. And that really bode well for then when we decided to do Love Me Like a Reptile for no cover, to bring Doro in. She, of course, knew Lemmy well. She was good friends with him. And she was excited. She asked, she goes, well, what Motorhead song? And when we said Love Me Like a Reptile, she goes, oh, great choice. Well,
and she actually sings on Sheer Heart Attack, too. So we actually had her do that first. And then we were doing Love Me Like a Reptile. I'm like, God, I'm going to ask Doro to do this. Because, again, she was good friends with Lem, and I just thought she'd be into that, and she totally was. So I'm selfish. I got to sing not one, but 2 songs with Doro on this record. It's amazing.
It is great. Now, when I look at the track listing, there are two songs that keep popping up in the press release as TBA, TBA. Are there two extra songs that you're going to slot in? Has the full thing? And are we covering Sword? Are we going to cover Sword?
No, we're not covering Sword. We should have, but
you should have.
There's actually.
We should have done Stoned again, dude.
Yes.
Now that looking at your Montreal skyline behind you, and it's funny because Rick Hughes keeps hitting me, you know, with his he's got his new record ready to go, which is awesome, you know. So, well, look, for No Cover 2, maybe we'll do Sword Metalized as the cover, and then we can get shit for not knowing that we put a Sword cover on our album.
Right. So, there's two. We reconfigured the track listing a little bit. So I'll tell you this: one of the TBA songs is a Kiss song, and it will absolutely not be a Kiss song anybody would ever expect. And and then there's one other one that's going to be kind of a bonus track, which is one that Dave did that actually Chip Enough sings on. So again, another cool little, just some more of our buddies. I didn't even sing on that one. Like Chip sang it so cool that I'm like, I'm not even gonna bother, man. I'm just gonna let Chip do it, you know. So
yeah.
Well, if Chip's singing, it's got to be another Cheap Trick song.
Wow, damn, you're good.
Yeah.
It may or may not be another Cheap Trick. I know.
Yeah, he is a one-man Cheap Trick band, that guy.
Yes, he is.
He's amazing, yeah.
Everything Chip is Cheap Trick. Just quick, you cover Love Hurts.
We do.
Obviously, it was originally an Everly Brothers song and made famous by Nazareth. Are you going back to the roots of it and bringing out what was done sort of in the early 60s, or are you sort of redoing the Nazareth version?
No, it's very much the Nazareth cover.
Okay.
I mean, you know, for me growing up, I don't know about for Tom, but for me, that was the quintessential rock ballad. I mean, there was nothing cooler. I mean, everything that, you know, Chris Cornell, you know, he bowed such a, you know, to basically Burton Cummings and you know, the singer of Nazareth, you know, I mean, those, like, if there was if they had a bastard child, it would be Chris Cornell. You know what I mean? Those guys for me growing up were, you know, the icons of that era. And for Tom, of course, to be able to sing that is well, I hope it was easy, because, you know, it has that gruffness to it, and you know, the melody, and, you know, we added a little bit of some Hammond keyboard to it for a little bit of supportive stuff in it, but other than that, it's pretty true to form.
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, and I actually, you know, I've always been a big Nazareth fan, you know what I mean, despite, you know, kind of it being a 70s thing. Like, I actually did a cover myself of Hair of the Dog like 10 years ago, and again, so it was cool, and we got Brandon from Crowbot sings on it with me too, so but yeah, no, it's totally, and it's great, man. He's got this great almost smooth southern thing behind the full on you know what I mean, so it's great. I really like, and that was one of the ones David threw. This whole record was just this process of, you know, which is how it ended up being 16, 17 songs. Now it's going to be a double frickin' CD. David would call me, literally, I was in the studio tracking, when he called me one night, he goes, dude, we have to do Love Hurts. So the next day, I'm in the studio tracking the vocals for it. Like, Andy in Italy put the rough track together that night, and literally, I was singing it the next day. And that's really representative of how this record went. Like, me calling David going, oh my God, dude, we have to do this. David called me, going, dude, we have to do this. And we're like, all right.
It was nice with the 9-hour time advantage with Andy Martingelli, our guitarist, you know, who's really kind of tasked as our musical, like, sort of anchor, you know, so we can send things to him or hit him on WhatsApp, and, you know, right as we're going to bed and he's waking up, and say, hey, put together Love Hurts, Love Machine, and freaking Free Wheel Burning. And, like, you know, by the time we wake up, they're all three sitting in our computer, and we're ready to go. So it's kind of this 24-hour round the clock, like, little Keebler elves of musicians running around in the factory and whipping tunes together.
And that's
which I love. Let me just quickly ask you this. You cover Nailed to the Gun by Fight, which of course is Rob Halford's band, or you know. Yeah. Fantastic band. You got Russ on there, Russ Parrish, who's of course in Steel Panther, but he was in Fight. Talk to me about picking a new song, because going back and doing Love Hurts and Auf Wiedersehen, sort of the classics, Rebel Yell, it's kind of, I don't want to say obvious, but makes sense. Right. Talk to me about bringing something new to this song, because it is a fantastic song that maybe didn't get the limelight it deserved.
Well, here's a funny thing. So one day I'm sitting here as we just started putting this record together. I mean, we literally just had a conversation, and across my phone pops a YouTube notification of a band I had back in the 2000s called F5. And we actually did a cover of Nailed to the Gun. And Rob Halford really liked it. I think he always enjoyed that we covered one of his personal songs, not a Priest song, which would kind of maybe be the little more obvious one to do. So he always enjoyed that I did that, and I saw it come across. So I watched the video and I went, oh, that's right, Jimmy DeGrasso played on that. And I hit Tom and Andy Martingelli. I said, man, let's cover Nailed to the Gun. And right away, I mean, that's one of those favorites. And Tom is one who said, he goes, dude, we got to get Russ Parrish on there. So we got Russ on there, and called Jimmy DeGrasso, said, hey, you're up again. Let's bang this a second time. And then Jimmy's good friends with Andrew Freeman, who sings with Last in Line. And Andrew had just said, I guess Jimmy told him, he said, I'm playing on this track with Ellefson. And Andrew said, he's going, oh my God, I love that song. Is there any way I could jump in? And we said, of course. I love Andrew. I'm meeting him the last couple of years on tour with Last in Line. So we had him jump in. And so, a lot of this is the blending of the voices. We've got some incredible drummers between Dave Lombardo, Charlie Benante, Dirk Verbeeren, Jimmy DeGrasso, Dave McLean, and our own drummer, Paulo Cardi.
Oh, and don't forget Chuck Beeler played on this stuff.
We got Chuck Beeler. Last year we played with Chuck on when we did the Ellefson solo tour for the Sleeping Giants record. We came through Detroit, and Chuck and Chuck and Megadeth, we've been friends since our departure. Everything's fine with him, and he's never sort of been gunning to get the gig back. He's just been very respectful. We let him sit behind Dirk during the shows, and wherever we're playing up there. And so it was fun to get Chuck back on stage and play. And I got to say, playing those So Far So Good So What songs with him last year, like Hook and Mouth and Liar and stuff, is like, I just stopped at one point in the show and I said, dude, now I remember how much I really enjoyed playing with you. You've just got such a great feel. And so, those drummers were great. And then, of course, Andy was able, getting Andy James, who has been playing with Five Finger Death Punch, and Gus G, and, superstar guitar players, of course. But I think the blending of the voices, Tom's got a very particular type of voice. And I think Tom has really been widened out big time from sort of kind of a more in-your-face type of style that he's had. And especially once you hear this Kiss song now that we did, you're like, oh my God, I never saw that one.
I need to hear it. What is it? Which one is it?
I never saw it coming. Trust me. I don't know. Tom, it's up to you if you want to say it.
Are we doing Crazy Nights or Secretly Cruel? All night? Is it all night?
All hell's breaking loose.
Breaking Loose is a killer track.
I know. I love Lick It Up, man. I love that track. But no, Jimmy,
covered
tell you what, Mitch.
While we were at it.
Tell you what, Mitch. I will send it to you again.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Now let me
just to make up for calling you Jimmy, like I'll send it to you.
I'll give you this. My wife's father, who passed away, his name was Jim. We were both born on the same day, so cosmically it makes sense.
There you go. Even though it says Mitch right at the top of this, that just
yeah, it says meeting with Mitch. All right, let me ask you this. We got this Post Malone Over Now cover played on Montreal radio, and I look at the track listing, it's not on there. So talk to me about that song. Where does it go? Is it just sort of this one?
No, that's actually going to be the actual Ellefson record. Look, that,
okay.
We had conversations kind of about it, but look, this album, again, it's all kind of classic stuff. And I wanted to actually speak to the fight thing too, which was funny. We originally didn't even have the Judas Priest song on. We just were going to do Fight originally. So Free Will Burnin' wasn't even on the record. And then like kind of last minute, I called David and I said, you know what, should we do a Judas? And I think we were both kind of maybe intentionally sort of avoiding it after doing the thing with KK last year and kind of being so Priest-centric. It just seemed really obvious. But then we all just loved Judas Priest so much that it just felt like just weird to not have one on there. So yeah, we kind of did that. But look, all this stuff is real classic, real sort of faithful. I mean, look, some of them are updated and sort of modernish, but Over Now, that's an Ellefson song that fits with the songs on the Ellefson record, which are heavier and progressive and modern, and so Over Now just didn't really fit on this record, and there's actually another cover that we did for the actual Ellefson record. So again, those are reimaginings of songs from totally different genres. These are just, doing kind of faithful versions of the actual song. So to me, they're just kind of different. The ones like over now. It's like a reimagining of a totally different, a stylistic reimagining. You know what I mean?
See,
So it's just,
and I just wanted to get in on the whole Judas Priest thing for a second. My logo there was done by Claudio Bergaman, who did Judas Priest Firepower cover. So there you go.
Yeah.
So, but
that's
now
hence the fire around you.
Right, hence the fire.
Firepower with.
And we'll go back. Yeah, firepower with Jim Lafon. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe you kept that there. I'd know your name.
Yeah.
I should have kept it there.
Seriously, I joke around. It's like memento now. Like I seriously have to write down little notes so I don't forget you. It's hilarious. I'm glad I can laugh at it, but
it's fine. But I do want to ask you a couple more questions just about Post, because he did this thing with Ozzy, and fans went, "Oh, he shouldn't have done that," blah blah. And I once in a while refer to Post Malone in my stuff on Twitter, and people are right back and go, "Ugh, blah blah." And the guy is a fucking talent. Maybe he's not heavy metal, maybe he's not, but he's a talent.
It's funny, Mitch. One day, Tom hits me. I remember right where I was. I was driving on the freeway here in Scottsdale, and he hits me and he says, "Man, you know this guy Post Malone?" And I can't remember. My daughter has his music, plays it all the time, and I was not that familiar with him. And he said, he goes, "Dude, this guy's got more songs in the charts right at one time than the Beatles." And he goes, "Dude, he's got a So Far So Good So What tattoo on his arm." And he says, Why don't you send him a tweet? So I sent him a little message, and that kind of struck up it took him a couple of days. He got back, and I happened to go meet up with him when I was over in Stockholm last year. Frank Bello and I were on tour with Slash doing our Altitudes and Attitude thing, and I stayed behind an extra night to hang in Stockholm and hung out. And Posty was playing beer pong backstage and doing his thing, and it was just a great little hang, man. It was just a really, really, yes, sir, yes, yeah. Are you doing, Mr. Ellefson? Yes, sir. Very polite, very Texas Southern polite, and and I just had a great respect for him, and I started to get to know his music, and I really liked it, and it was cool stuff. Of course, my family was excited, and Tom then struck up a conversation, and now we've gotten to be good friends with his dad. And it's funny, his dad's my age, so his dad got his son Austin, other known as Post Malone, into heavy metal and into rock and roll and all this stuff. So, it's and I think Post is probably my son's age, right? He's like 24, 25, 25, so yeah. So, it's funny how when you kind of start to look at it from a family side, it's cool to see that his dad and is really into it with him, and it's a family thing. And he helped organize a nice stream for us, and Post was kind enough to come on and we just talked shop. We talked heavy metal and guitar playing, and he really is. He's a really good guitar player. He's got real chops. He's got a real sense of musicality. And it's one thing I've learned from my daughter. It's like some of these EDM guys, right? A lot of these guys are from like far Eastern Europe, Russia, etc. And like Zed, I took her down to to see him, and we chatted for a bit after the show. And he's like, "Yeah, me and my brother, we had a heavy metal band. They're from like the Czech Republic, And he goes, "Yeah, I just got started doing this stuff like a couple years ago," and it was like selling out arenas. But I really got it because a lot of these guys, they're real composers, they're real players and they're real composers. And then at that point, whether you put a Marshall guitar on it or not, you're really stripping back the real composition. And I think that's what I got into as we got, Tom had suggested we do over now last year when we were on tour. And I loved the idea. I thought it was very cool to take a current song, reimagine it as a more metal song, and introduce it to our fan base. Because No Cover is the opposite. No Cover is taking much older songs, bringing them forward to today's fan base. Over Now was taking today's song to probably an older fan base, kind of going the opposite way with it. So they each have their own little intricacies about doing that. But to dig into that song and really kind of get the sort of R&B underpinnings of the Post Malone stuff, especially that song Over Now, especially as a bass player, was really fun. And I think all of us, we were excited for him to hear it, because he's a real musician, and it was great. It
sounded great. So let me ask you this, Ozzy does the collaboration. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you at some point, not necessarily with Post, but with a more current artist you would consider doing on a Megadeth album or on an Ellefson album or on a No Covers album?
Absolutely.
I don't know. I don't know in Megadeth. I brought it up to Dave a couple of times. And we always bring these things up, and you have to be very careful with that. One of the things we've learned over the years with Megadeth, the Risk album always comes up in topic is, you can push out a little bit.
I like Risk, by the way.
I do too. I do too. And I'm using that as that was kind of if that was 1999, a band formed in 83, it's 2020. So it's kind of in the centerpiece of the career at this point. Right. And, you realize as an artist, how far can you push and go? And we realize, when it says Megadeth, it needs to be Megadeth. There's a sound, there's a look, there's a thing about it has to be. I think one of the things Thom and I are having fun with under this Ellefson solo, moniker here is that, people
there's
expect
none of that.
Yeah, well, people expect it to have some teeth and be heavy. And I think with Sleeping Giants that we did last year, a lot of those were songs I'd pulled literally out of a box over here on my shelf. There's some demos of songs that I brought up, but Thom and I worked on 3 new songs, and they were pretty heavy. When you work on them in the studio, there's a certain flavor, because in the studio you can kind of make everything sound pretty good. But when you take it live on stage, you get a whole different experience. And we learned from that, because we took those songs on the stage and we realized which ones worked and which ones, quite honestly, did not. There's a lot of notes, a lot of complexity. They're just kind of going over the listener's heads, right? So as we're working now on the new Ellefson solo record with the original material, we, now as a band, we've had experience on the stage together. And it's kind of, I go back to killing is my business. It's one thing to make that record and then take that stuff on stage. And by the time we did Peace Sells, we knew what was working and what was going to be a record song and what was going to be a live song. That's why we knew when we played Peace Sells every night before we even recorded it. As soon as Gar started with the kick drum, hey, that whole kind of, and I started the bass line, you're like, this is going to be a hit, man. We have a real hit song right here. And so going through this process, now I think it's the same thing. And, for us to be able to be, flexible of doing things. It's ironic. Tommy Lee was one of the co-writers on the Post Malone song on Over Now. And, you look at what Tommy is able to do outside of Motley Crue. He's been able to go stretch out and, write with Post Malone. He had his whole, kind of electronic DJ career. He's been able to do some things. Yet when he's in Motley Crue, he's Tommy Lee of Motley Crue. And I think it's important that you know your role. And when you're in those settings, you stay true to what those. When I'm in Megadeth, I'm not over here doing, EDM shit. I'm
right,
very much the thrash metal bass.
Though sometimes innovating within your own band doesn't hurt. And I'll say this for the record: Enter the Arena and Crush some fantastic songs.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and then that's the thing. I could definitely see something like that happening in Ellefson, or David collaborating even with Posty. That's come up on several occasions. And look, I definitely wouldn't rule that out. As David's manager, not just a singer in his band. It's like, look, I could definitely see something, like that happening in the future for sure. I know.
Well, listen, it would be a smart business move, because it would introduce Ellefson and Dave to an entire new audience, which is exactly sort of the point of what you. Let me ask you this: in terms of doing no cover, and you sort of mentioned no cover 2 at some point. Is covering Megadeth songs off the table in the sense where you could take Symphony of Destruction and have Post Malone rap on it and change it and reinvent it? Or is it like, no. Megadeth stays on Megadeth?
I think it needs to stay separate,
Go ahead,
John. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we'll throw in a Megadeth song here and there live, but I don't think we'd ever record it. Megadeth is sacred. Megadeth is literally my favorite band ever. I on the Mega Cruise, getting to play with David and actually Kiko and Dirk jumped up and played with us, and those are amazing sacred experiences, and I love playing those songs live and throwing them in. But yeah, I would just never do that. To me, again, I know David's that thing's over there. We kind of just keep those two things separate as much as we can. Look, when we play live, people expect to hear a couple Megadeth songs, and we'll throw them in, but that's really just as a tribute to where David came from, and
well,
now
or paying respect to the fans that sort of want to hear it.
exactly. I mean, look, in everything we do, I think we play stuff that Megadeth never plays. I think we do it in a very respectful manner to Megadeth. I'm a huge fan of Mustaine. I think I do this stuff justice, and I think 3,000 people on the Mega Cruise probably agreed with that assessment. So again, it's great, but yeah, no, for me, I would I mean, like, I would never even really. People have asked Dave to play on, Megadeth covers they did, and he was like, no, and you know what I mean? It's like, so again, I think that just kind of stays over there, you know what I mean? And when we do broach it in a live situation or whatever, we treat it very. I mean, honestly, I'm excited to go out now and not have to play a bunch of Megadeth songs. Like on the Mega Cruise, we played like 3 of our songs and 10 Megadeth songs. It's like now we can go out and play. I'm excited to go out and play our songs and get away from the Megadeth stuff. I mean, that's to me. Now we have this. Well, we have 2 records worth of material, basically 3 really with Sleeping Giants. We have, 3 releases of material to draw from. Which
we have
is
16
amazing.
new cover songs of our own to play.
Exactly.
16 new cover songs.
Well, plus Simple Truth and Over Now, and we already have the whole.
Over Now is great, by the way. I think you did it. I think you did it justice. But let me ask you this, Dave. Then, in the sense of you've reimagined these songs, but I'm just going to ask you a quick Megadeth question. Has the band ever thought of reinventing the Megadeth songs for a release? Because Metallica does S&M 1 and S&M 2, and we always have unplugged albums and acoustic albums. And there's all kinds of stuff. Megadeth has pretty much stayed true to being just Megadeth. Have you ever thought, hey, or has there been a meeting where you say, hey, we should re-release this and add this and add that and symphonies this? I mean, have you thought of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, in the MTV years, I guess started with Nirvana, right? Weren't they the first ones to do the Unplugged, and then Alice in Chains or whatever it was? Yeah, so, look, I think
Poison did one too, don't forget.
That ship has kind of sailed. I mean, Metallica has done very well and kind of has their own brand, the S&M thing. It's kind of their own little subculture within what they do, and the fans really like that. Megadeth, I think probably the thing that we did is we did a lot of acoustic stuff. And it was one night Nick Menza was really pushing us in Japan. He goes, man, we should go play acoustic. And, Nick was always very forward thinking and would kind of push these radical ideas out there. And one night we did. We were literally playing this, I don't know, big 5,000 seat place in Yokohama, south of Tokyo. And we went out there. We just rehearsed it real quick backstage and went out and with acoustic guitars and sat on benches or on stools and played. And it was an absolute hit. And, of course, the Japanese loved it because it was unique and special to them. Right after that tour, we went straight down to Argentina. And we played live across the national Argentinian radio station, and it just blew up. And that became the thing. And really through The World Needs a Hero, playing acoustic. In fact, we set up that record. We did a 3-week.
Well, there was an acoustic tour. I saw one
in
Quebec.
Were
you at the Quebec show?
What? Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It was for The World Needs a Hero. We did this 3-week tour that we set up.
Yes.
For that record. Yeah, I think Music Plus, right, is where we played, right?
Well, you played Music Plus, but there was a bar up in Quebec City, way up. And I'm trying to think who was in the band at the time. It was obviously Mustaine.
Well, if it was 01, it would have been me. If it was sometime in the 2000s, it would not have been me until 2010. But it had a real swagger to it. Yeah. There was a feel. And I think what we realized is that when you can take these, look, it's the old adage, right? If you can take a song and break it down to just vocal and acoustic, it's probably a great song, and that's what happened. I mean, and there were some things like She-Wolf and Atula Mon, and of course the Cryptic Writings record lent itself really well to that with Trust, Almost Honest, Use the Man, Symphony of Destruction, of course.
And by the way, I just looked it up. It was 2001.
It was 2001, yes. It would have been on The World Needs a Hero. And it was really great. It was a lot of fun. We did these little kind of 500 to 1,000 seat theaters, and it was just a promotional setup for that record. So I think probably for Megadeth, the acoustic thing has had. In fact, there's this great acoustic band down in Buenos Aires called Megadeth, and their whole thing is they do all acoustic versions of Megadeth songs, and they're incredible. So to me, that's inventive. I love that. It's very creative.
Megadeth. That is fantastic. I'll send this out to both of you. You obviously cover some metal bands, Judas Priest, Motorhead, But then you get the Dead Kennedys, and then you get, Sweet and Cheap Trick, and you're sort of doing sort of classic rock and punk rock. Talk to me about that, of just covering the different genres and not just saying we're gonna do Motorhead and Fastway and just sort of getting in there and getting Dead Kennedys. I mean, who's expecting the Dead Kennedys?
It's funny.
Right?
It was Tom's idea to do Dead Kennedys, and it's funny because a lot of these songs, I don't think we were that intentional, but it's ironic how it turned out. They're very bass centric. That of course starts with this, with this bass line. One that I thought you might pick up on was Bachman Turner Overdrive's "Not Fragile," which of course opens with the bass line. Yes, the nice Canadians.
And here's the fun thing, Tom has Killer Dwarves on his lineup, and one of the Killer Dwarves goes off and he's the guitarist for Burton Cummings.
Oh, for Burton Cummings, no kidding. Okay.
Sorry. Why am I singing Burton Cummings? He's nothing to do with Bachman Turner.
Yeah, BTO.
BTO. Who covered the Kiss song, by the way, "Rock and Roll Hell"?
Your microphone is picking up that bubble really well. That was almost like a voiceover dub of a Mountain Dew ad right there. That was great.
I don't know what the hell happened. My Skype just crashed. So sorry, I'm back. I missed.
Soda break. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the early stuff, and it's like you say, Sweet. Desolation Boulevard was a record that right as I was just hearing rock and roll on the radio in 73, 74, 75, those years, Desolation Boulevard, BTO Not Fragile, Kiss Destroyer. These were the records that were all coming out during those couple of years. And so we did go back and cover them. And a lot of them were songs that me and my friend Greg Handovit, we played in cover bands back in Minnesota, which is why I got Greg to come in and also sing and play guitar on Love Me Like a Reptile, because that was one of the songs in we'd play that at proms. We had a set list that said Eddie Money, 38 Special, and kind of all these like lighter pop bands. And then we'd come in and we'd have our set list, which was Love Me Like a Reptile, Wrathchild, Running Free,
They call that the bait and switch.
The bait and switch, yeah. 38 Special to get hired, Motorhead to make the dough, So, but we're young metalheads.
Nothing wrong with 38 Special, by the way.
There's nothing, absolutely not. Absolutely
Jim Peterick has written great tracks for them, great tunes for them.
Hey, 38 Special are wonderful. In fact, that's one of the things Tom has got me back into buying vinyl. But I don't buy the expensive vinyl, and I just have just a simple little TIAC.
He's not asking like me buying like $200 Trickster records on eBay.
Yeah, I literally the ones that I was introduced to is I buy the little $6.95, probably the ones that were printed in 1976 that are still still have some shrink wrap on them.
Well, see, that's the thing though. In my collection, I'm at the point where all the common shit that I want, I already have, and really all I collect is originals, and it's all 80s metal and hard rock stuff, which, as you know, is super expensive. And I'm at the point now where the records I still need are all $200 records. Again, shit like that first Trickster record that I finally pulled the trigger. Or again, just stuff that's very uncommon on vinyl. A lot of early '90s stuff that's very. So again, I'm kind of at that point in my collection where all the records I need are just not common, unfortunately, anymore.
Tom's going to have to make a lot of money as a rock star so he can afford his rock star habit of buying vinyl.
Terrible.
Hey, listen, that's what keeps us here, our love of music, right? I mean,
I just the only reason we're here. Let's face it, Yeah.
In the last week and a half, for some reason, I've gone on an Uli John Roth and Michael Schenker binge, and I'm noticing that I have some holes in my collection. So I've been on Discogs buying all the fucking CDs from the Japanese this and the Bulgarian that, and it's like, hey, that's what we do, man.
Welcome to our world, Mitch Lafon.
Yeah, or Jim, either one. There we go. I think we've covered everything in terms of this. It's a great project, a great thing. I love the fact that you have Fight on there. I love the fact that you've got Wasp on there. It's not just Kiss times 10 and Metallica times 10 and all these bands that we. By the way, would you cover a Metallica song, or would that be wrong?
I think it would brush up against the wire of and look, a couple of reasons.
You have to worry about that at this point, though.
No. Listen, I think just as you see behind me, the big four. It'd be like saying, well, then cover a Slayer and an Anthrax tune.
Yeah,
I mean,
here's contemporaries of
here's the truth of it.
know?
I'm of course a fan of Metallica. I did not know of them before I met Dave. I only heard of them through Dave. And for me, the Metallica that I got to know was No Life Till Leather.
Yeah, but you met Dave 6 months after Kill 'Em All came out. So how the hell would you have? Nobody did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I met him. Yeah, it was like 6 weeks after he was out of the band. So, I did not know of Cliff Burton. I knew of Ron McGovney, who was the bass player on the No Life Till Leather demo that they had done. So again, my sort of entry into that world was really as a contemporary to them. It's kind of like when we would do Metal Allegiance and people would be like, "Oh, let's play some Slayer," and I'm like, "Look, if Kerry King's here because he's my brother, and he played guitar with me in Megadeth, I'll play a Slayer tune. Otherwise, they're kind of like my contemporaries, Same with like playing Pantera. I had a girlfriend when I was seeing in Texas, and she took me to meet Pantera. And they were on the Power Metal record, so this was pre-Cowboys from Hell. Yep. And went down to see him, and I jumped
with
up
Terry Glaze on vocals.
Yeah, well, no.
Power Metal wasn't Terry Glaze.
Phil had just joined the band.
Okay.
Phil had just joined the band. Yep, and kind of looked looked a little like Sebastian Bach back then. And but they were great, man. Those boys could drink and play great. And we did both. I jumped up and played Peace Cells with them.
Probably in that order.
Yeah, so exactly. So these guys are all like friends of mine, you know what I mean? So when I say come up to next to the wire, it's the wire of, for me, this record was about going back and playing things that I had not gotten to play really since I was a teenager in Minnesota, growing up. And I think for Tom, again, being 10 years younger, he got to go in and go, oh my God, Free Will Burning is my Judas Priest. I'd love to do a Wasp song, you know what I mean? So this was really more about going back to our childhood, if you will, our early musical formative years, and bringing those things forward, not about covering things that are contemporaries right now.
Okay, well, fair enough. It's just that, for example, I'll give you a quick example with the Scorpions. They have a song called Speedy's Coming, and in it they mention Alice Cooper.
Right.
And in the last few years, they don't mention Alice Cooper anymore. So I asked Klaus, I said, why don't you? He goes, well, Alice opens for us sometimes, and it would be silly for us to be talking about the opening act. And I was like, no, it wouldn't.
Yeah, now, speaking of Scorpions, and we talked about this in Metal Allegiance. Like, we've never done a Scorpion song, and I was actually driving around literally yesterday thinking about that. He's a woman, she's a man. Speedy's Coming. Those are some songs that would be worthy of putting on a cover record. I don't know if Tom and I would do it.
I mean, going back, going way. Polar Night has so many parts you could.
Man, I don't know. 80 Scorpions right here. I'm sorry,
but I don't know if you saw. I mean, look. I remember when probably right around the same time On Through the Night came into the rehearsal hall back in the farm in Minnesota. That same drummer, Justin, that was in my band then. He also brought in Heaven and Hell, which was a whole new sound for Black Sabbath, as well as the Love Drive record by Scorpion. So, Love Drive through, Blackout were just incredible game changers for them. And then as I went back and, got educated on the Uli stuff, when I met Dave, when we were living there on Sycamore in Hollywood, we had a friend of ours that went to GIT, to the Musicians Institute. His name was Ed, and he lives in Ohio. And he would come over, and he was like our Uli buddy. And he and Dave and myself, we would sit around and we would play like Polar Nights and Sails of Sharon. It was this very exploratory thing. Dave was, again, now post Metallica, about 2 months. We were forming Megadeth. This new sound was developing, and Dave was really inspired to really take his guitar playing to another level, practicing a lot, always working on stuff. And you can hear from where Dave went with what he wrote on what would become Kill 'Em All, essentially, the No Life Till Leather stuff that he wrote, and what then became Killing Is My Business and Peace Sells, because a lot of those songs were written kind of at the same time, both those records. All of a sudden you're hearing things like The Conjuring, like the guitar solo stuff, the solo in Skull Beneath the Skin, things like Looking Down the Cross. That to me was Dave advancing his guitar playing like exponentially beyond what he had been doing in Metallica. And a lot of that happened from those couple of months that we lived on Sycamore. And some of it was digging into Polar Nights and Sails of Sharon and really kind of like digging deep into some of that Uli stuff.
Well, that early stuff got such musicality that there's so much that you can do with it. You know, some of the '80s stuff. I love all Scorpions, but the '80s stuff is very straightforward. It's chorus, verse, chorus, blah blah, little solo, off we go. But that early '70s stuff is
now.
wild.
But at the same time, Matthias, I love Matthias. Of course, I love when Michael Schenker came in and you played on, of course, on Love Drive and everything. And then you learn the story. Matthias is like, look, I'm not going to save your ass a third time. Look, you've had me in, you had me out, you've had me in. Like, now it's time. And I'm glad he is the guitar player in Scorpions. I mean, touring with them a couple years ago, and we've done shows with him over the year, but, spending some time with him on the road, he is just such an incredible musician, and his touch on the guitar. I remember there's a moment we were ready to leave, and we stood backstage behind the curtain and everything. They had their video, guy back there, running the video cameras, and there was this nice, clean guitar thing that Matthias was doing on a Stratocaster, and Kiko, being certainly a fan of Matthias, and just really watching him play. I mean, he changed the Scorpions to who they became in a lot of ways. He was able to take their sound and develop it from being this kind of '70s hippie rock thing to being a really kick-ass, amazing, sharp '80s rock band that they became, So I love Matthias's playing.
And by the way, that's the amazing thing about Scorpions, is that you don't get, fans will, with Kiss, they'll say, oh, you got to bring back Ace. And there's always, with the Scorpions, you never say that, because the guy who comes in after is as good or better. And then you go, and Matthias is great, and Uli's great, and Schenker's great. And if they left and they had to get somebody else, I'm sure he'd be fantastic too. It's just, it's amazing how they've been able to.
The other thing about the Scorpions, they were never really developed as, like, there was always, kind of those in and out sort of guys. And again, it's, it's kind of like Fleetwood Mac, you know what I mean? Like, to me, the Scorpions, with Uli is just a totally different band than they were, like, from Love Drive on,
Right.
It's kind of like Fleetwood Mac
Peter Green versus Lindsey Buckingham. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, they're just two, and in the '70s, you could kind of do that more. Like, Kiss was always established just as those four guys, that sound, so that's probably a little more why you get that. So, But one other thing I wanted to plug before we wrap up here is I also do some stuff with Chris Poland. Speaking of P-Cells, and so in January, I was lucky enough to induct him into the Metal Hall of Fame at NAMM, and so me and Phil Demmel inducted him, and we performed. Me and Opus and Dave Sharp, who actually play in our Sleeping Giants backing band sometime with David, Ricky Bonazza from the Butcher Babies, and Phil Demmel. We performed with Chris too, and the whole show just came out on Amazon Prime this week, so you can go catch that on Amazon Prime. Me inducting Chris Poland into the Metal Hall of Fame and performing a little. Speaking of Megadeth, we played a little bit of P-Cells, so.
Good, and I hope it's on Amazon Prime Canada, because I see all these things that say it's on Amazon, and I go check it out, and then it's like, no, not here, damn it.
Oh, that'd be a bummer. Yeah, definitely on Amazon Prime US, because I watched it yesterday.
Hold on, I got Prime here. Let's see if we can plug it worldwide.
Let's see if we can do it.
So what's it called? Metal
Hall of Fame.
Metal Hall.
Is it the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame?
I think it's just Metal Hall of Fame now.
Metal Hall of Fame, yeah. Which has really been a cool thing. It's really cool that they do that. It's really, it speaks. Remember when I was there, a couple years before, when I inducted
we were there the first year you went and then you should watch it. I actually talk about that in my speech inducting Chris. But yeah, the first year we were there, you inducted Menza, and then they inducted you and Frank last year, right? And then this year, Chris Poland.
It is currently not on Amazon Prime Canada, so we're going to have to make a call and get that on there. I don't know if it's a rights thing or whatever, but so just get one of those what do you call them, private internet things, and go around.
Get a VPN. Get a VPN.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. And just go around.
Sean Drover turned me onto the VPNs when he was in Megadeth, because he was a big sit in his room and watch movie guy. And I was like, what are you doing? Oh, you got to get a VPN. I was like, what the hell's a VPN? He had that down. It was pretty funny. So. He's a Canadian, so he knows. He knows Canada
probably
gets left
dealing
out
with
of the party. Yeah, exactly.
That's the only way to get entertainment up here, is to have a VPN. Everything's blocked everywhere. It's like you can't get it in Canada. Oh, come on.
That sucks.
But no cover, the album will be available in Canada and, of course, across the world. And there you go. Merci, monsieur, as we say in Montreal.
And
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. Thanks for having us on, man.
Already pick up a couple of the tracks. We've been kind of dropping tracks as we release them as singles on Bandcamp. I think it's just ellefson.bandcamp.com. And you can pre-order the record and get some cool packages and stuff on our Indiegogo page. I don't know the URL, but you can find it. Just search for Ellefson No cover on Indiegogo or on Google, and you can find it. So anybody supporting, thank you so much.
Yeah,
absolutely. Always ready to support. And it's a great project. And you covered Def Leppard, so I'm happy. And Billy Idol, so I'm really happy. And Cheap Trick. Actually, made me very, very happy.
I'll send you the whole record. I mean, like, it's pretty much done. I'll just send you the whole damn thing. I mean, other than like 2 or 3 songs, it's pretty much done. So
I'm ready. And at some point, throw in the Post Malone. I think it's perfect that fans should get the old stuff, but also be introduced to some new guys.
Well, look, they're gonna get introduced to that again. That'll be on the Ellefson, the actual solo record.
The solo record.
Yeah, that's coming out in 2021. So again, we've got a bunch of. It just stylistically, it fits better, man. I mean, look, Over Now is really heavy and modern, and again. So is the record, you know what I mean? So
and again, the new Sword in 2021, right?
Yep, we're working on that now. I was just talking.
And we'll work on those Sword and Ellefson solo dates together. That'll be a good one. So we actually started that conversation. You know, Rick Hughes, he did his motorcycle ride and came down here. So I went and met him when he came through Phoenix here, and we were talking about that. And he actually played me some of the new record in his pickup truck. You know, and Rick's one of those guys. I love when you sit with guys who get you so pumped up about it because they're singing along to it and they go, wow, check out this break right here. Bang, bang. You know what I mean? And he's one of those guys, like, I would have loved the record even if I didn't like it. Like, he can, like, that's how into it he is. But of course, I'm a massive Sword fan and I love it. And I'm so happy that they have a new record coming out. So, you know what? You're right, Mitch. And you are the linchpin to make that whole thing happen.
You are.
Yes.
And I have to say, Rick recorded a Kiss cover for me back in 2013 called The Oath. And I know exactly what you're talking about because he had me come down to the studio and he's like singing along going, listen, whoa, whoa.
Right,
and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm with you. And it was
like,
great.
Get you pumped. He's like just selling you on it, you know, and it's already great. You know, he doesn't even need to sell you on it. You're already digging it, you know.
You're digging it. I know.
Rick's awesome, man.
Anyway, thank you, gentlemen. Of course. So we got Sword, Killer Dwarves, no cover. Tom and Dave hitting it out of the park. And loving Canadian.
Thank you. Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate it.
Much love for our Canadian friends.
Yes.
Merci. Have a good day. Cheers.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye-bye now. All right. See, perfect. Let me stop the recording. There you go.